Hi,
Yeah.
Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hey, good morning.
You
How is
made
it?
it.
Good evening. What? I mean, an hour and a half later. That's all right. And
No,
then the shuttle driver didn't hear that two of us wanted to get off at our building, so he dropped us off at Townsend. So we had to run over here.
oh no.
So funny.
Oh
He got all
no.
mad at us. He's like, "I didn't hear that. I didn't." And we're like, "It's fine. We can walk."
Oh no. Well, I'll be joining you and just after this session, so I'll see you soon.
San Francisco
Awesome.
traffic.
San
Fun,
Francisco
fun
trip.
morning.
Classic. Fun morning. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll just give it another minute or so. I know we have some lovely returning faces. Hi, Trish. It's so great to see you on all these calls. I love that we have returning people. Awesome. Okay, well, my tradition for starting off these calls is I always love to know where everyone's calling in from. So if you want to go ahead and pop in the chat, we'd love to know where you're calling in from today. Hello from San Francisco as well. Hi, Trish. I just love every time I ask this question because it just reminds me of how global our community is. And I think it's so cool that we're able to have these and you all are joining from all different time zones and taking the time to be here. So just want to thank you all again so much for your time, and we're super excited to have you here.
And to be true, Jenna, I was thinking though the session is ask the expert, but to be true, in every session, right, we get new type of questions, new type of understanding, and that you know that brings even more value, more knowledge to the person even,
I
right? I mean,
agree.
we share our insights to each other. It's like a collaboration with other people also, because I mean, whenever you get a new question, it reminds, okay, yeah, it could also happen.
I love it. Exactly. It's like we're all experts in, but there's always so much more to learn. And I feel like we all teach each
Yep.
other. And that's what I feel like the feedback I've gotten from these other Ask the Expert sessions is all the champions who've led them have been like, they felt like they've gotten smarter just by talking and like learning from all of you all on the call. So appreciate
So
that. And I think we can probably go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll get more people kind of trickle in throughout the time, but I know we have a lot to cover. So I'm excited to dive in. Thank you all for joining us for our last episode of the Beyond the Skill Exchange Ask the Expert series. I was just telling Ritesh, I can't believe we're already at the end of this series of the 4. It's totally flown by, and I hope, and it's nice to see some returning faces that have been here for more than one of these sessions. So thank you for joining us. My name is Jenna Feldman. I am the Adoption Marketing Manager at Adobe, running the AEM Champion and User Group program. We're super excited to have you here to hear from one of our amazing AEM champions, Ritesh Mittal, who led a session at the Skill Exchange called Smart, Scalable, and Structured, Building a Future-Ready Content Framework. So again, many of you have been on these kinds of calls before. We want this to be a conversation. Ritesh is going to start by doing just a quick overview of the content he shared during the skill exchange, but then we'll also have time for Q&A. So please make sure to ask your questions during that time. We'd love for you to come off mute and on camera if you feel comfortable doing so. If not, no problem. Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat at any time, and we will get to them then. So without further ado, Ritesh, would love for you to maybe introduce yourself.
thank you so much, Jenna. Hi everyone, I'm Ritesh, lead architect at IBM, and I provide solution in mainly Adobe and cloud technologies. I am also honored to be recognized as Adobe champion again, and yes, I'm also Adobe community advisor captain. I have experience in various industries, mainly e-commerce, retail, healthcare, and life science, and that brings because I hold the prestigious IBM industry platinum title for life science and healthcare industry. And beyond my professional career, I host a YouTube channel, Tech Talk with Ritesh, where I try to share insights related to various technologies, career counseling, and of course, we can brainstorm with each other. Outside of tech environment, I am a fine artist, and I work with various mediums: oil, acrylic, charcoal, mixed media, etc. Yeah, so that's me.
Very talented artist, I can confirm. And also just all around super expert, I feel like, with so many different things, Ritesh. So thank you so much again for being here. So would love for you to give us a little recap of the session that you did at Skill Exchange.
Sure. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, sure. So during skill exchange session, we explored how to scale content operations using AEM assets. We started with the content chaos problem. The problem was that we have duplicate content. The content is just placed uh, anywhere in the repository. It is very difficult to manage that content in terms of governance, so it is an inefficient content. Then we looked at the three foundational pillar for solving it. We can say let's have a structure, let's have a scalability in your assets, and of course the smart content management. Within structure, we covered that how can we use the right metadata and taxonomy to bring order, governance, and discoverability within your content repository. From scalability point of view, we saw that how can we leverage the content fragments to centralize the content, enable reuse and scale across various channels. And then finally, we have the AI capabilities. We can use the AI powered tools within AEM. So together, these pillars transform content from chaos into a structured, scalable, and intelligent ecosystem. That is what we have seen. Yeah, next slide, please. Typical example of taxonomy. So if we see that, okay, whenever we talk about taxonomy, we see within asset repository, we have various aspects. For example, permission, renditions, metadata, tags, folder, workflows. Together, these decide what kind of taxonomy or folder structure you are going to have. Uh, Jenna, can you please one more next? Because now we can see that if you want to have it in detailed view, renditions could be like, for example, thumbnail. For metadata, we could have details related to assets. Like for example, if it is related to some related to your assets are related to educational, then it could be author details, the title of the book, description of the book, keywords, etc. Then we have tags, and then of course workflows, etc. also comes into taxonomy. Like for example, your governance is that whenever you upload a new asset, it should first go for an approval, and then finally if it is approved, then it should be published. So all those aspects, this is the typical example, but usually it depends on your business use case, like which is applicable, or maybe you need a new taxonomy or governance. Yeah. Next please. And then we saw what are the content fragments. Basically, I mean, I love the content fragments. I'm a lover, because from this session we covered that uh, content fragments are modular content pieces without presentation. This question comes often, that what is the difference between the legacy component or the new content fragments. The main difference is that it's content, it's not presentation, it's separate from presentation. And this help in maximizing content reusability across your channel. It boosts collaboration and workflow efficiency, which eventually reduces duplication and manual work, and it enhances the global consistency, especially for if you are working maybe a project which is an enterprise solution, and you're looking for a multi-regional campaign. Just an example. So we can just create one content fragment, create a create a master copy, and then multiple variation of the same content fragment. So you are still maintaining at one place, but you are actually reusing this its features. So maintainability is easy. Yep. Next, please. And the third pillar, which is smart content management. So we explored smart tagging feature, which is very, very popular, which automatically classifies your assets for easy discovery. New features, I love it. Find similar images. I actually have recently used this feature, find similar images. So it accelerates search and improve brand consistency. And the variation generation, which is closely related to the Gen AI, the generation AI feature. It creates multiple renditions instantly for different devices and channels. So for example, if you have a use case for a text and image, and you want to create various variation, you just need to give prompt you have that feature. It is directly connected with Adobe Express, where you can create a new content for it, and then you can decide which one you want to use, and then just take action accordingly. So this is what we covered in our session. Yeah. Of course, you can connect with me anytime. I'm available. You can just scan this scanner QR code. Um, you can connect me via through my channel, TikTok with Ritesh, or through LinkedIn. Yeah.
Ritesh, will you talk a little bit about this tech talk with Ritesh? I think this is so cool.
So back in 2019, I believe I started this channel. The main challenge what I was facing, that I mean, whenever we work for example, Adobe Experience Manager, and if we find some difficulty, we usually look for like what is the solution if someone else has already faced that issue. And I don't know. I mean, during that duration, I found couple of issues. I mean, while I was in the implementation team, so I thought I should also support my colleagues. So with that thought in my mind, I started this channel, and then I started with like one or two YouTube videos. Then it has become now like I'm high now. I mean, like so I try what I do is whenever I get a new concept or new learning, I'll just try to frame it and I'll just put it. Recently, I started the career counseling videos as well. So, 2 years back through IBM, I started IBM Skills Build, connecting with the different people, non-technical people from various geography. And then I got to know that people are struggling with issues like that. How can they can improve in their career, something even something non-technical, right? So I thought, I mean, that content also I can put, so I mean, eventually it will help people, so giving back to the society.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. You already have a new subscriber. Thanks, Raf. And Raf also has an incredible presence online with sharing thought leadership around AEM. So I feel like this is a great. I'm so glad we're having this call and then we're making these connections. This just makes me so happy. So thank you so much for sharing more about that. I'm just going to leave this up for a little bit longer just in case anyone wants to subscribe. But we will probably now move into the Q&A kind of portion of our conversation. Of course, you're welcome to put in the questions at any time during this. I did have some questions, Ritesh, that I wanted to ask you based on some of the questions we got during the actual skill exchange event that you either answered or didn't have time to answer. So let's dive into those to start our conversation. So one of the questions that came up, I think a few times during your chat during skill exchange, was what would be the difference in benefits of using content fragments versus experience fragments?
Content fragments versus experience fragment.
Yes.
So, Jenna, I would say the usage is totally different for different business use case. We use the content fragment or experience fragment. Like I said, content fragment is just plain content. There is no presentation layer attached to it. So, for example, I want this content for omni-channel. Maybe it's applicable for mobile. It's applicable for desktop, and for headless delivery, right? I can create the content fragment. I can expose that data through GraphQL queries, and now any channel can use that because it's not bind with a presentation layer. Whereas when we talk about the experience fragment, it is content plus the presentation layer. You will get the whole HTML. So the use case is totally different. Now if you want to have the web pages, the same web page is at a different location, then we will go with experience fragment. And one of the popular example is header and footer. In throughout our website, we usually see that the header and footer is same. So experience fragment is the right candidate for there. But if it is like different content, but if you want to have placed at a different location, right example would be, for example, FAQs. Maybe you have some product campaign where you want to give that data to for different various channels, then we will go for the content fragments.
Thank you. That was really helpful to know the difference for that. And hopefully people found that helpful too. I'd love to know, by using content fragments, does repeated content across the site hurt SEO?
Uh, Sorry, I didn't get. I mean, content fragments, repeated content.
Yeah, if you like repeat content across a site, is that going to hurt your SEO?
See, I mean, it is not only applicable for content fragment. It is applicable for any of the content which is available in your repository. There comes the primary part, which is when you are deciding the taxonomy and the hierarchy of your system. Usually, what we do, that we ignore the prelim part. We directly jump into the solution, and because we ignore that, then it becomes a challenge for us. So, for example, initially there is a content coming, and then we are just creating that content again and again, and of course it is duplicate, irrespective if it is a content fragment or we are just creating that content using normal site pages or using experience fragment. Later on it becomes challenge, because now we have a huge repository where we have lots of duplicate content, and we don't know what to do with that. Over a period of time, when the repository grows, maybe in GBs, etc., and then it is like a dead end, because now we don't know, like, how do we cope up with that. If there are duplicate images, duplicate content, there are ways, but that is also a challenge, because it might impact your the performance of your system, to distinguish if there are duplicate content. So better to we should avoid that in start itself, that we define governance, we define the proper taxonomy, and based on that we educate the business authors or the content authors that if there is a content which needs to be reused at multiple places, rather go for content fragments, so that I mean, or experience fragments, so that you can reuse it rather than creating the same content again and again.
I love that. And I'd love to even pause on that question. And I just want to see, I'm actually curious from this group, has anyone else kind of struggled with that? Or have they kind of, was this like a helpful tip, or is this something new you're going to try based on that? Or just kind of curious people's experiences with thinking about, not wanting to recreate the wheel, but wanting to protect your, SEO in general. So pause and let the group, I'm curious if anyone has anything to share on that.
And I can just give another example to it. It just reminds me another example. So, for example, you have created various content fragments, and like you said, we have the same content in maybe more than one content fragment. Now, consider we have tagged those content fragment. You have implemented the search, and of course, it will come in search. It will impact your search, right? Because you are getting now two results, more than one result, which is maybe one of them is not even relevant, or it's a duplicate, right? So yes, of course, I mean, from SEO point of view, from your site branding perspective, it might impact if you do not manage it properly.
Ritesh, I don't know if you saw Raf's point in the chat, but Raf was looking to see some real world use cases in using AI and assets. So like a demo, for example, like generating a variation of an image using AI. Raf, I love that. I'm not sure we can get to that right on this call, but I think that might be something that Ritesh, if you maybe want to follow up with Raf on, or any of our other champions on this call, or anyone else who's listening in who might have an example, could be a good follow-up. We can definitely get back to you on that, because I love that idea of doing kind of a follow-up and getting more of a demo. Ritesh, do you do any of those kinds of demos or anything on your?
So I mean, I have not to be true, I have not done that. I mean, hands on myself. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that is pretty excited, right? I was checking this variation generation feature, and then it is actually Gen AI feature, which is like through AEM we connect, through APIs we connect to Adobe Express, and the prompts, etc., we are providing. But yeah, I think we can arrange another session for that, where we can have a demo with real use cases. Yeah.
Definitely. Cool. Well, I have some more questions. I'll ask one more, and then I'll open it up to the group for kind of more open Q&A. And reminder, you're always welcome to put your questions in the chat at any time. We will look at those. But this is a good one. What are some best practices to effectively leverage smart tag training on your current library of assets? And the follow-up to that is, would we need to reprocess our existing library of assets to maximize the effectiveness of smart tagging?
So the best practices to harness the smart tagging, right? That is the question, right, Jenna?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, so to be true, I mean the smart tagging feature, which is out of the box available in cloud as a service, we that is first thing is that is already trained, but that we can also add to it. I mean, we can modify it, we can train the model, and according to our business use case, we can we can have more sophisticated specific tags added to it. Okay. Sorry, Jana, I missed your question, the original question.
That was most of the question. The follow-up to that question that kind of came with the first question, which is, would we need to reprocess our existing library of assets to maximize the effectiveness of smart tagging?
So that is, to be true, that is not required. So what we can do, if you are, for example, if you are migrating your content existing asset to AEM, and then you are planning that if the smarter tagging is working properly or not, the best way to do is first maybe take a bunch of assets, um, try to process them, see if the tags are relevant or not, and if not, then we need to train the model. And the very good example is, so for example, there is an image, and a person is holding another person's hand. Okay. I have given this example to others as well within my team members. So now there can be different aspects of this image. One aspect could be if it is related to sports, maybe it could be a teacher or coach who is guiding the student. But if it is related to healthcare, maybe it's a doctor who is holding patient's hand, right? So it is best that you first process few images, see if the smart tag is generating the content, the tags properly or not. And if not, then first we should train the model so that we get the maximum output from the existing feature.
That's really great. And we talked a lot about smart tagging on our past Ask the Expert sessions as well. And I know there was a webinar that we just hosted on smart tagging. So Michelle, I'm going to call on you if you have the link. Would love for you to pop that in the chat so people can check that out. We had two of our champions who spoke on that, who both hosted Ask the Expert series sessions in the last few weeks too. So would love for you to check that out if you haven't gotten the chance to yet. But those were mostly the questions from me from now. I have a few others, but I want to open it up to this group and see if anyone has any questions for Ritesh. It could be about the content at Skill Exchange. It could be about really anything with AEM, because he is one of our experts. Thanks, Michelle. No questions quite yet. I know a lot of people on this call are actually kind of newer to using AEM, so totally feel comfortable asking any questions, no matter what level. We want you to feel like you can ask Ritesh, and he's got such great knowledge and has been doing this for how many years, Ritesh, have you been using AEM or working with AEM?
Yeah, so 2011 was my first project. Back then it was CQ 5.4.
Yeah. Wow. That's about right. Yeah.
All right, I'll ask a question then. One of the things, hey Ritesh, so one of the things about AEM assets is that there's so many different ways to view the assets that you have in your repository, right? So you can go to like AEM as a cloud service and view it just going through navigating via author. You can go to assets, which is available to you when you just go to experience.adobe.com. You can view your assets from GenStudio. You can view your assets from Adobe Express. There's so many different ways that you can view your assets. Content Hub, right? That's one of the newer offerings, which is basically replacing Brand Portal. So there's probably different kinds of use cases for those different UIs. But you personally, are there ones that you prefer to work in that makes you most productive, most efficient? What's your preferred UI for working with assets?
Okay, so thanks for asking that question, Raf. Actually, you have already answered that. Because of different use cases, we have different those mediums. So, for example, if it is author, business authors, or the content creators, they will usually prefer directly going to the author environment, make those changes, and then finally publish it. If it is for content creator, maybe then they will go to brand portal or somewhere. Usually, I prefer the authoring mode. Likewise, we have the touch UI based one, because it is giving me all those functionalities available. So for example, I can do the development part of it, I mean the technical side of it, as well as the content authoring. And there are various features available, I mean, within the authoring side. So for example, you can view the properties, you can define the metadatas, you can associate this asset to another collection, and then that way you can, that way it is more searchable, right, discoverable. So I would love that authoring side, Raf.
Okay, great, thanks.
And to be true, I mean, another functionality which I love about this using the asset features within authoring part is metadata schema. Correct. So whenever we start a new requirement or new project, metadata schema. So we have folders, right? Within folders, we drop assets, and then we, for each asset, we have metadatas. Now within AEM we have that capability available, that different folders might have different metadatas. And this is all automated. So for example, you have two folders, folder A, folder B. Maybe one require a property which is different from folder B. So it is easily doable at the time of migration. What you need to do, if it is a migration project, you will just create those folders, and you will assign those metadata schemas to the subfolders. And then we have out of the box utility available. If it is, you already have the metadatas available, you will just run that utility, and all the assets going to folder A will inherit all the properties assigned to that schema. So I love this feature. um, and of course, yeah, that is also available on other sides. So I mean, there are hundreds of reasons that I love the authoring side of I mean, maintaining the asset.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Raf. I feel like you're always so amazing at kicking off this conversation. And every time you talk, it's like, look at the chat. We have all these questions coming in now.
Yeah.
So takes a user group leader to know how to kick off a conversation. I love it. Amazing. Well, Ritesh, we have like 3 questions that just came in through the chat.
Yep.
So do you want to maybe start off with Andrea's question? Which
Sure.
is, can you point out best practices of SEO for a multilingual and global sites using AEM? That's a great question.
Okay. Point of best practices of SEO for a multi. Okay. It's so, though it is not related to asset, it is a common guideline that we need to follow for SEO. So for example, whenever we create a new page, new site within AEM, there are best norms which are available on Adobe documentation as well. So for example, you give a meaningful name to your page. That is one of the consideration. Your name should have proper metadata tags, meta keywords. Make sure you render your content, try to render your content on client side. And then there are few other properties available that you need to consider. I mean, there are like tens of best advices available, that, but yeah, we need to see the Adobe documentation for that. One thing we should not do, that is already called out, that we should not create duplicate content. Otherwise, if the pages are available with duplicate content, it will impact the SEO. And yeah, that is it. The second question is, do you utilize metadata profiles? And if so, have you figured out an automated way to create and manage them. To be true, I have never encountered any requirement where we need to create metadata profiles dynamically, because for say you have a folder and you want to assign few metadata properties, you will never change it dynamically. I mean, the property attributes will always remain same. So who has asked this question? Do you have Abe? Any specific requirement, Abe, which you want to highlight?
Yeah, hey, so we work with a multi-brand, retail environment. So within any given, and our folder structure is based on year and season, and at the brand level at the top. So when you multiply that by however many brands we're supporting based on the number of assets and asset types, because of how many folders we have to create, we're trying to automate the tagging process so that any asset that's added to a folder inherits that metadata, but the creation of those metadata profiles at the folder level so that it distinguishes this is the Fossil brand spring 2026 asset. It's been a really cumbersome process to create and manage those in AEM.
So if I understood it correctly, you want to even create the folder at runtime, right?
No.
And assign. Nope.
Mm-mm.
So,
No,
so you don't.
we're creating the folders in a templated style so that we're kind of tackling all folders for maybe an entire year at one time, and then going in and adding the metadata profiles to each of those folders.
So if the folders are fixed and you are not creating them dynamically, then what we can do is we can create various metadata profiles and then assign those metadata profiles to different folders. Okay, any content which will go to those folders will automatically inherit that profile attributes. So for example, you have created a folder and then you have assigned some metadata profile to it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are importing any new asset to it, it will inherit all those metadata uh, keywords to that asset.
Yeah, and that's what we do. I think it's the creation and management of the profile itself that's the cumbersome part. But
So yeah, I mean that is that is doable, right? I mean,
okay.
but it is not advisable because if you are creating metadata profiles also at runtime, right? It might be a challenging one. I think what you are doing is what you want to do is you have a business use case. Uh, Based on some validation, you want to decide that whether this folder should have this metadata profile or that metadata profile, correct?
Yes, essentially. Yeah. Any
Yeah,
new folder that's added needs
correct.
an associated metadata profile.
Correct. So that is doable because all we have to do is write a new service for that. Anytime a new upload is happening, we can bind it to a launcher or maybe a new scheduler, right? Anytime a new upload is happening, based on that business logic, we can create a folder and assign relevant metadata profile to it.
Mm. Okay.
But that is not advisable.
Okay.
We should have a fixed metadata profile at least for that folder.
Yeah.
That comes in the governance and when we decide the taxonomy or the structure of the whole repository.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Next question. I think next question is, what are some of the practical benefit you have seen with adding dynamic media to the mix, be it performance, asset processing, governance, etc., etc. Okay. So Abdul has this question that what are the benefits of having dynamic media? Yes. So the thing is, whenever we talk about the application performance, right? What we want to do is we want to offload our maximum content. We what we want to do is we want to offload the content serving part. What does that mean? That, for example, if we have those assets on EM side, right, the application the load will go to application and sometimes it impacts the server. So dynamic media is that you are hosting your asset to the dynamic media, that is totally different server. Now whenever we are accessing those images, assets, videos, right, those are not served by AEM, Adobe Experience Manager, but served by another system. And because now the content is served by a dynamic media, it won't impact your AEM server. Sometime nowadays people have also started using for different use cases, for example AWS S3, where what we'll do, if it, you know that this object is going to be, because S3 provides us various storage layers. If you are looking for a archival process, so S3 provides that glacier option as well. So like you use the CDN, you put the content, your assets to the S3, and then you have that integration with the AEM, and now the content will be served via CDN to your server. So again, in this process or in the dynamic media process, what we are doing is we are just offloading our content load to another server. Jenna, I think I have covered all questions, right? Do you see any other question which I have not covered so far?
I don't see anything, but I saw Abdul, you came off mute, so didn't know if you wanted to respond to Ritesh.
Yes.
Or if not, that's also totally fine. But definitely encourage you all, if you feel comfortable, to come off mute. If there are any use cases you have, or just any, if there's anything that kind of relates to your own specific instance, I'm sure Ritesh can answer that. So we definitely, we have another question that came through the chat from us. Thank you. Ritesh, go for it.
Yeah, okay. So how is the integration of AEM assets managed with legacy systems or previous repositories? Sorry, can who has put this question? May I know your exact use case, Andrea? I just want to understand the use case. So if I understood it correctly, I think you must be using any other repository, and now you want to understand that how can we integrate AEM asset to that repository. Is that correct understanding? Okay, because now I want to understand why you want to connect another repository to AEM. Usually what happens, we store the content, we store the assets to the repository, like for example AEM asset, and then this content, these assets are served to the pages, the web pages. So if you have the assets in another repository, why can't you just migrate those assets to AEM and then serve to the AEM pages? Do you have any specific use case where you want to integrate AEM assets to that repository? Maybe you want to come on unmute, please. Oh, great. Okay, so in case if you want to migrate your content, your assets to AEM, then yeah, I mean, then we can just migrate that content. It depends. There are various use cases. For example, if it is if that is a plain asset, or those assets are also having metadata associated, so then we need to plan. First, we need to plan the governance, the structure, the hierarchy. What is the source technology, right? If we already have connector available or not. So for example, currently with Adobe Experience Manager Cloud as a solution, we have connector available with S3, with Azure. So if your content is already there on S3 or Azure, we have direct connector available. But if it is something that the connector is not yet available, maybe for example box connector is not yet available, then we might need to introduce maybe an intermediary solution between them. Maybe first you will migrate your content from box to S3 bucket, and then since S3 or Azure, and then since from S3 or Azure we have the direct connector available, we can migrate it. Sure. So I mean, usually the use case, the steps remain same. It's just based on technology. We decide whether we should go for which approach. So like I said, if your source, the existing technology, we already have the connector available, we can just use them to import the metadata. Also, we have direct out of the box utility available. Is just we need to put those values, those metadata keywords in a CSV and then import it to your assets. If the connectors are not available, then we have various solutions available. First recommended solution would be first you transfer to an intermediary storage, for example S3, then from S3 to AEM, right? And for metadata also you need to plan it. If you have any relational database, which is very rare case with your assets, sometime it happens. I had a use case where I had some content which I migrated to content fragments, and the metadata was in RDBMS. So then the approach was different. First, I exported the data from RDBMS to a JSON file, and then I imported that JSON file to content fragments. Yes. So I mean, approach remains same. It's just we need to decide on which use case, which one fits. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I hope you guys can hear me now.
Yes, Abdul. Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that. For some reason, my mic was giving me a problem. So
That's
thank you
fine.
for the answer earlier on dynamic media, and thank you for kind of suggesting around the S3 aspect and other things as well, right? So when dynamic media is getting marketed or sold, they say it can solve this and solve that. But at the end of the day, we could do a similar thing with an S3 or even AMS assets cloud for that matter. It has its own version of Fastly caching it at the CDN tier. So in that kind of context, when we have all that running, what much, I mean, how much of an improvement or what kind of difference does having a product like Dynamic Media really add to in a practical sense?
So sorry, I just missed your question, Abdul. Can you please
Yeah. So
repeat? Yeah.
what is Dynamic Media different in that sort? So it a lot AIM assets as a cloud can do something very similar. If you map it to an S3, it can do something similar. So what
So
is the kind of
yeah.
USP of Dynamic Media?
Okay, I get your question. See, so for example, when we talk about S3, right? S3 is more or less object storage. It won't give you any functionality. You store that, store your object, your files, your assets to the S3, and you will just get it. It will just serve your content. Whereas when we talk about dynamic media, right, it comes with some different functionalities. For example, if it is image, you can define presets, right? You must have seen that. For example, Amazon, right? You hover on that image and then it will zoom in. You can define the hotspots on a particular image. You will select one of the hotspot, it will bring another image which is a subsection of that image, right? So those features are available in dynamic media. So S3 and EM is just plain content serving. There are no extra features available
Okay.
out of the box. Yeah.
Thank you. So it'll fit only maybe certain retail specific use cases, and it may not fit generic web kind of needs for the most part. I'm just trying to figure out, we got it, we built it, but from a strictly performance aspect, I didn't see much of an improvement, irrespective of having dynamic media versus not having it. So I was wondering, man,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
didn't I
That
get it in the
that
first
is
place?
true. I mean, it actually depends on different use cases. You are
Okay.
correct, Abdul. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have time for one more question if anyone has anything they want to share. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to pop up this next final screen here. I know many of you, if you've been on this call, have seen this before, but we do have an AEM user group program. If you'd like to continue getting to hear from other experts like Ritesh, and there's a few other people on this call. Raf leads a Midwest user group chapter. So if you'd like to continue the conversation, join meetings, we'd love for you to join our user group program. It's totally free to join. There are meetings that happen, again, every month, every quarter. So we'd love for you to take advantage of those. You can scan that QR code and sign up. So any last words, any last questions, anything else, Ritesh, you want to share?
Just want to share that, I mean, after this skill exchange and this session, I'm feeling more connected with the other people around the globe, right? So the best part of these sessions were that it's not about that sharing your experience with others, but learning, like I already said, right? Learning various aspects coming from other people, because there are hundreds of use cases which we have not explored. It's a learning. So yeah, thank you so much, Jenna and Michelle, for that.
Well, we are so grateful for you. And I want to thank everyone on this call for joining today. I also popped the link in the chat to sign up for our user group program if the QR code wasn't working for any reason. And as Raf said, if you're in the Midwest area, they're hosting a Chicago meeting on Thursday. It's going to be a really great session. So hope if you're in that area to see you there. Otherwise, we also have virtual meetings as well. But I just want to thank everyone so much for your time. Please reach out to us at any time if you have any questions. And we're here for you. And we want to say yay to the end of the Beyond the Skill Exchange
Yeah.
expert series. I can't believe we're here, but very sad, but also we will do more of these for sure. So have a great rest of your week, everyone, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jenna and Ritesh. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.